Oh, so sorry about that. That just kind of ended rather abruptly. Moving on, moving back. Okay. So we have here your somatosensory association cortex, which is posterior to the primary somatosensory cortex. It integrates sensory input from the primary somatosensory cortex for understanding of the object. So all of this, less important. This, determining the size, texture, and relationship parts of objects that are being felt, that is what I'm most concerned with. Visual areas, of course, they're going to be called the primary visual area or cortex. It's on the very back of the occipital lobe. That's the most important piece that I would want you to know. It receives visual cortex information from the retina. Visual association area is actually uses past visual experiences to interpret visual stimuli like color, form, or movement. So one of the things that it does, then it gives you the ability to recognize faces and shapes and forms, for example. Complex processing involves entire posterior half of the cerebral hemispheres. The auditory areas are what allows you to hear. So it is the primary auditory cortex is in the superior margin of the temporal lobes, which is laterally placed. It interprets information from the inner ear as pitch, loudness, and location. Auditory association area stores memories of sounds and permits perception of sound stimulus. So the primary is actually in charge of anything, any sensory cortex is bringing the information in. The association area then takes that and commits that part to your memory or allows you to remember things and associate with other pieces and other pieces of information that come to you. Okay, there's the vestibular cortex. This is in the posterior part of the insula, and it's next to the parietal cortex. This is responsible for conscious awareness of balance. So just so you know, I'm going to turn this over to tell you. Just so you know, I'm more concerned about what it does, less where it's located or where it is. I need to know the area of the brain and what it's responsible for. That's where I would like for us to simplify. Moving on. Olfactory cortex. This is the smelling cortex. It's in the medial aspect of the temporal lobes. It is involved in the conscious awareness of odors. It's part of the primitive rhinencephalon along with the olfactory bulbs and tracts. It's a remainder of the rhinencephalon in humans becomes a part of the limbic system. This is how come, well, the limbic system has to do with memories, emotions, and things of that nature. This is why certain smells are so critically and intimately related to the sense of smell. Gustatory cortex, the word gustatory has to do with taste. So gustatory cortex is involved with, obviously, the perception of taste, and it's deep in the temporal lobe. Visceral sensory area, it's behind the gustatory cortex. It has to do with conscious perception of visceral sensations, like an upset stomach, full bladder, things of that nature. Nice picture again. Nice picture again. Limbic association area is part of the limbic system. It involves the cingulate gyrus, the parahippocampal gyrus, and the hippocampus. Provides emotional impact that makes a scene important to us and helps establish memories. Limbic system also is said to kind of give you the stranger danger type of feeling as well. So tumors in the or lesions in the anterior association area can give rise to personality and mental disorders, loss of judgment, attentiveness, and loss of inhibitions as well. Affected individuals may be oblivious to social restraints, perhaps becoming careless about personal appearance, or takes many, many risks. Different problems arise for individuals with the posterior association area linked lesions, and that may, this area provides awareness of self in space. Individuals may refuse to wash or dress the side of the body that's opposite of the lesion because that part isn't mine. So this is the part where a lot of people will say, well, these people, I don't know if you've heard of these people where they're like, well, I want this leg amputated below the knee because that's not mine. That part of the body doesn't belong to me. Parts of the cerebral cortex, lateralization of cortical functioning. Lateralization is defined by the division of labor between the hemispheres. Please, please, please know what lateralization means. Cerebral dominance. Really quickly before we move forward, hemispheres are not identical. They're like sisters, not twins. Cerebral dominance refers to the hemisphere that is dominant for language. 90% of humans have left-sided dominance, usually results in right-handedness. The other 10, the roles in hemispheres are reversed. Left hemisphere controls language, math, and logic. Right hemisphere, visual, spatial skills, intuition, emotion, and artistic and musical skills. Hemispheres communicate almost instantaneously via the fiber of the tracts and functional integration, which then takes us out to the basal nuclei or the ganglia. It's the third of the three basic regions of the cerebrum. Each hemisphere's basal nuclei has a caudate nucleus, a putamen, and a globus pallidus. Closely associated with the subthalamic nuclei or the diencephalon and the substantia nigra in the midbrain. There you have it. So, like I said, these are more important functions of the basal nuclei are to influence muscle movements, play a role in cognition and emotion, regulate intensity of slow or stereotyped movements, filter out correct versus incorrect responses, and inhibit antagonistic or unnecessary movements. I want to make sure we put some kind of shape. Let's see if we can copy that. That takes us to the diencephalon, which consists of three paired gray matter structures, which is the thalamus, which is on top, hypothalamus, and then the epithalamus. All three of them are close to the third ventricle. I need you to know for the nervous system, thalamus and hypothalamus. Concentrate on those, please. The thalamus is a bilateral egg-shaped nuclei that form superiolateral walls of the third ventricle, and it makes up 80% of the diencephalon. Bilateral nuclei connected by interthalamic adhesions, which is an intermediate mass. It contains several nuclei, which are named for their location. The nuclei project and receive fibers from the cerebral cortex. So the thalamus, in short, is in charge of bringing in sensory materials or sensory information. All sensory information, especially the special sensory information that you'll learn a little later, it's all going to go up through the thalamus. It's like it's a switchboard for sensory information. The thalamus is the thalamus's main function is to act as a relay station for information coming into the cortex. It sorts and it edits and it relays the ascending input, such as stuff from the hypothalamus for regulating emotion and visceral sun function, impulses from the cerebellum and the basal nuclei that help direct motor cortices, and impulses for memory or sensory integration. Overall, it acts to mediate sensation, motor activities, cortical arousal, learning, and memory. Hypothalamus is right underneath that, as named by, as the name implies. Forms the cap over the brainstem and forms inferiolateral walls of the third ventricle. Contains many important nuclei, such as the mammillary bodies and which are paired anterior nuclei that acts as olfactory relay stations, and the infundibulum is the stalk that connects to the pituitary gland. So we'll stop there.